Welcome everybody to Trojan Conquest Live, episode 90. You notice we're missing one of our regulars. Mark Rogers will not be with us tonight, but I know he's here in spirit. Tonight we're going to talk about recruiting, what's going on. Georgia had the Under Armour Atlanta go on today, so there's been some rumors and rumblings, some recruits out there. We're going to talk about the over-unders that came out for the Big Ten teams, and then also we are going to talk about the introductions of the new defensive coaches at the USC staff. With me always is my editor over at Trojan Wire, Matt Zemek. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, and I know it's the voice of college football, not the voice of women's college basketball, but USC could be a #1 seed in the women's NCAA tournament, so that's pretty awesome. And so feeling good about that, and we're covering that, but of course also, college football. And, to me, the main story for USC over the past week, since our last Monday show, we talked a little bit about this in our call-in show on Friday here at the Voice of College Football. Just the defensive coaching staff knocking it out of the park. Like, if you were going to have a scenario where, what do we want these coaches to say? What do we want these coaches to emphasize? What do we want these coaches to identify with, to be all about? You would have written the script exactly the way it came out at that media availability last week. I mean, the coaches could not have hit better notes all across the board. And it's all tied together by Lincoln Riley saying, like, this is music to all of our ears here at USC. I wanted player developers. I wanted a staff of developers, and that flows from his desire to have people who want to be Trojans, who want to be in the program, who aren't chasing the bag, who really cherish the opportunity to play football for the Cardinal and Gold, put on that helmet, play in the Coliseum, everything that comes with being a USC Trojan. And this defensive staff is going to develop the heck out of the guys who want to stay and be Trojans. It's exactly the right message. It's really well synthesized. It's aligned, and everyone on the defensive staff has buy-in. So, you're not going to have the fragmentation or isolation of last year's staff when it seemed as though Alex Grinch was just doing his thing and it was leaving everyone else on an island. And of course, when the overseer, the defensive coordinator, has so much autonomy over what happens in terms of scheme, in terms of who plays, who doesn't, then and he's not doing the job well, then everything crumbles. But of course, this is a collaboration. Danton Lynn is co-defensive coordinator with Eric Henderson, and you have Matt Entz, FCS national champion head coach, taking on the role of linebacker coach and defensive assistant. And then you have Doug Belk, a defensive coordinator the past few years, being secondary coach. These guys took downward steps just not in terms of school, but in terms of their position at their previous place of employment. They took steps down the ladder, not up the ladder, to be part of this collaborative effort at USC. Lincoln Riley wanted, I believe he was targeting 7 different coaches, and he got 4 of them. So that means you win a best of 7 if you get 4. But the larger point being that it's going to be group decision making. Everyone's going to have input, and that should lead to better decision making. Not just because you have several guys collaborating, because they're all good. They're all proven. They all have credentials. That's the other thing, that Alex Grinch, the main limitation beyond just the fact that he wasn't that great is that where were his home run seasons? Where were his proven examples of delivering elite work? I mean, he had that one really good year at Oklahoma, 2020. But of course, that was the pandemic year when the practices and scheduling and workouts, nutrition, strength training for every team in the country was thrown off balance. So it was kind of an outlier. That was a year when Michigan and Jim Harbaugh were under 500. So that was the only instance of Alex Grinch doing a great job as a defensive coordinator. So the sample size was small. But when you look at this defensive staff, every guy is a credentialed guy, and every guy has done tremendous work. Now, Danton Lynn, a little bit young, and like he doesn't have that many accumulated seasons, but like he worked within the Baltimore Ravens scheme, and we know that the Ravens scheme is the ascendant defensive scheme in football, college and pro, and then he took that to UCLA. So like that's still a pretty strong endorsement of Danton Lynn, how dramatically he improved UCLA. But of course, Danton Lynn, he's only 34 years old. That's why Lincoln Riley has Matt Entz. That's why he has Doug Belk. That's why he has Eric Henderson. These sounding boards, and you have four bright minds, not just four minds, four bright minds, all coming together. Let's not forget Taylor Mays as well on staff, providing his input, knowing how to teach tackling in the secondary, which we saw in the Holiday Bowl. So just everything that we heard from the defensive staff and from Lincoln Riley last week, you really couldn't have asked for a better set of statements about what USC's defensive identity, philosophy, approach are supposed to be. It's exactly as any USC fan wanted. It's as much as any USC fan could have hoped for, if not more.
Yeah, the introductions were really cool. You guys, if you want to go to the athletic site, check it out. They go into quite some detail. Like you said, Matt, the one thing that this staff and Riley have been banging the drum for over and over and over again, and recruits we'll talk about in a minute are hearing it loud and clear, is development. They're saying, look, maybe this isn't the place for you. If you don't want to take that bag and go into some school that has a million uniforms and 0 national championships, head on up there, get paid, do what you want, or come here and get developed by NFL quality coaches. Come to us where we literally, if you're a quarterback, Lincoln Riley, I'll get you to the NFL. Matter of fact, I'll make you a number 1 draft pick. I might even get you a Heisman on the way there. Receivers, you want to play with in one of the best systems in college football? Do you want to play with the best quarterbacks around? Because I'm going to get them year in and year out. And now we've cinched everything up on the defensive side of the ball. Now on the defensive side of the ball, you're talking. Well, sorry. And Kyle McDonald saying, running backs, look at our running backs, and we're proving we are running back you. I don't care what Georgia, some of the other schools want to say. Look, we've got the Heisman to show it. And it's a precursor. But defensively, they've figured things out, and they're saying defensive linemen. Hey, I know it's been kind of a zoo. We're running that speed defense we're running. Now we're going to run the same system that has been run for a while up in Baltimore, McDonald's system, which now is Lynn did over at USC, which now over at UCLA, and now he's brought over to USC, where we're going to keep it simple. We're going to install it slowly. We'll get in that in a minute. We talked about during his press conference, and we will have you ready for the NFL. So what do you want? Do you want to take some money up front, or do you want to talk about that first and second contract you're going to have in the NFL? And I think the kids that are going to get it, they're going to see it. We see it right now. Why do kids go to Ohio State? Why do kids go to Georgia? Because they're going to get, and Alabama, because they're going to get to the NFL. And I think now we're going to see that with our coaches developing and getting guys into the draft. Drinking the Kool-Aid. Hold on, I'll go back here. Willie, thank you again. Willie's one of our biggest supporters, both financially as well as just being here every week. Willie means the world to us. All of you guys are here. Willie, take your time and money out of your pocket means a lot to us. Fight on, fellas. Great show. Love the articles you have been dropping, Tim. Yeah, well, Matt's been heavily helping me with the editing style and some of my issues of my writing, but I'm really enjoying it. I've been enjoying the process. I went to the basketball game the other night. Unfortunately, I've been sick. I had all kinds of issues here at my house. But I do have a basketball article coming out tonight. If you want to check that out, you should enjoy it. Getting ready for the UCLA game, talking about some of the problems over there. Andy's been talking about with the basketball team. As much as it was a heart-wrenching loss the other night to Colorado in double overtime, you saw Boogie Ellis break out, put up 30 points. And you also saw some of the other guys shooting kind of take a step up, for a while. I know that, Kobe Johnson had a good, decent shooting game, which has been a while since he's had. And then also we can continue to see this team just develop. So check that out. That's the basketball turn. But then back to football. We have been trying to get to 5,000, you guys, and we are there, by the way. We are now officially at 5,000. But if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you all being here as always. But Willie, thank you so much for that super chat. Appreciate everyone here. I had one more too. Sorry, let me grab that really fast before we go. Moments. Jeff, thank you. Also, another longtime supporter. Also, with not only with his pocket, but he's always here. He's always in the chat. Jeff's one of the best guys in the whole community. I see him if I'm at USC Jays. I see him there. Right wherever I go, if I see the Light the Torch guys, he's over there too. Jeff's a huge supporter of USC athletics, especially here on YouTube and the Footprint. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Just amazing. Like we get to be here twice a week with you guys, Matt and I, Mondays and Fridays, and I look forward to it. Literally every week. Also, Danny Kennedy, if you're out there, sorry I missed yours on Friday. We were literally shutting it down, and you snuck a super chat in at the very end. Thank you, Danny Kennedy. He's also a member. You guys, we are selling memberships, but he threw a super chat in there that I closed the stream down before I was able to acknowledge it. But Danny Kennedy, thank you also for your super chat on Friday. Slap Happy. You guys caught his joke earlier. Like the Torch guys always give him a hard time about being late to their show. He said, well, I thought I was late, right? Talk about our timeliness today. But Slap Happy, thank you so much. Still scratching my head from last year, especially after the Louisville game, and staying in scheme for the O. Staying in scheme for the O. I guess you're talking about maybe the quarterback. I guess you're talking about Miller Moss running the offense. Might be, Matt. You got that part for me?
Well, I'm sensing from Slap Happy, why was the regular season so bad if the Holiday Bowl was so good? That's the vibe I get from Slap Happy. He can clarify if he wants to in the chat, but that's the sense I get. Scratching my head about why we couldn't have seen more of that, the Holiday Bowl, in the regular season. And there we go. Yeah, that was what he meant. I'm right there. You know,
that's why I turned you.
Taylor Mays, like if Taylor Mays could just whip that secondary into shape, you know, why couldn't it have been done earlier? But anyway, good reminder about Dante Williams not being worth the recruiting prowess. But we've covered that. I mean, I just mentioned it, but I'm not gonna drive it into the ground too much because I've already done that.
Wow, Jeff, dropping this a little bit. I did not know that. USC defensive staff estimated $7 million. I don't doubt it. With bringing in the caliber of coaching. But you know what?
Had to pay up.
This is what
had to pay up. Yep.
This is what you do.
It's a Whole Foods coaching staff, not a 7-Eleven coaching staff.
We're upgrading. We're everything's all organic. We're not eating Top Ramen anymore. That's what that for our ingredients, Matt. I'll start. You guys, I'm gonna start with the questions as much as I can. We'll try to get to them sometime during the show, beginning, middle, end, whatever it is. But we will get to your questions. But I just want to address those super chats. You guys, again, I appreciate everybody's here. I'm shocked that you guys even show up. I mean, I'd come to watch Matt, but I'm so excited you guys come every week to come watch our show. Really appreciate each and every one of you guys. So let's go back to the recruiting. And there was a nice part about recruiting, the coaching staff. A nice part of the interviews I liked was when they started breaking down. Lynn kind of gave us a little idea into how he masterminded that turnaround so quickly at UCLA. You guys, when you have a new defensive coordinator, there's new terminology, new scheme, new everything, new responsibilities, new assignments for all they have to get on the page with that defense. And it sounds like what he did is he said, look, when he was doing the install early on in spring, he took it really slow. It's kind of like in teaching. When you're teaching and you think you're going too slow, they say to go slower. Because the idea is there's always those people that need to get that information. And one of the biggest hair scratchers or even hair pulling that a lot of us fans had during the season is when we saw guys in game 6, 7, 8, and they're running onto the field and they don't know if they're supposed to be on the field and they don't know where they are. They don't know what guy they have, what their assignment is. You'd see, one of the best player on the team running wide open in the flat. You're like, who's covering that guy? That was the problem. And he said at UCLA, what he did is they really went slow. Matter of fact, it went so slow, it was driving the UCLA players crazy. Like, we got it, coach. We got the playbook. And he's like, he was keeping it simple, keeping it slow so they would get the basics. Then when you get the fall camp and into the fall season, and as the season goes on, then you start adding those bells and whistles. And then Entz gave a little bit of a pinch. He said, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make, and this is the key to a good defense, you're trying to put a lot of window dressing out there, right? You're trying to make it look like a lot, but you're keeping it simple for your guys. And so that's what you're seeing right now. That's what we're going to see in the spring, probably in the fall ball, and into the season itself. I think that was the key to getting this defense up and running so well at UCLA. Matt, anything else you pick up from Entz or from Lynn?
I mean, Entz and Lynn both emphasizing fundamentals. Like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're trying to reorient this group around doing the basics right. And when you compare that to Grinch, and we have to compare this to Grinch because we're making the transition and hopefully the transformation from Grinch. So we always have to hold up Grinch as a measuring stick and a reference point. Grinch couldn't get the basics. He couldn't get the most fundamental things done. And you pointed to the confusion that players had. Beyond the confusion itself, defense is inherently a read and react activity. The offense has the ball, so the offense initiates. It's up to the defense. If defensive players are coached well, they're going to be able to identify what's going on. Okay, read, react, seek, hit, seek, destroy. Like the old NFL films with John Facenda, seek and destroy. Just you see what's going on and you find the ball, you find the ball carrier, and you go. And so just players should have a natural understanding of where to be, where to go, how to diagnose a play. We didn't have that for the most part on last season's defense. So like it really is it's not about having the genius scheme that's gonna confound opposing Big Ten offenses. It's having the players in the right spot. Like when I think about defense in general, but specifically in college football, where you're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, the great coaches, when I just watch teams play, are they in the right position? Are they where they're supposed to be? Are they clear? Are they very much aware, lucid? They have a good football IQ, and because the athleticism's there. Like Domani Jackson, his athleticism is formidable. It's substantial. Tackett Curtis, in terms of the violence he can bring to a hit, like he's obviously a very explosive, powerful physical specimen. But being a physical specimen, having all the measurements, having the traits, having the tools and the potential doesn't mean anything if you're coached up poorly. And this is like one of those chicken and egg debates, conversations that a lot of USC fans had all through last season, and we're having it into the off season. I've been very clear, and I will remain firm in this view. The problem last year wasn't Tackett Curtis. It wasn't Domani Jackson. It was Alex Grinch and Dante Williams coaching Tackett Curtis and Domani Jackson and the other players on the roster. Like this was not a failure of players. It was a failure of coaches to bring out the most in players that had a lot of potential and everything that was wrapped up in that. So like that to me is very clear. It's one thing when you have proven NFL players who are 28, 29, 30 years old in their physical prime. They've been there, they've done that, they know exactly what to do, and then they fail on game day. It's harder to assign blame to the coach. Not impossible, but it's harder when you have like a proven veteran, seasoned professional athlete, and then he just fails on the job. But with 19, 20-year-old collegiate athletes, like it is incumbent on the coach to get these fragile minds in these powerful bodies to be able to make the right responses, the right decisions. The college sports is more inherently tenuous compared to professional sports in that sense, is that these aren't grizzled veterans. These aren't seasoned pros. They are, very delicate organisms, and the great coaches will get them that sound, solid footing. And so to kind of bring this all back full circle, what Matt Entz said, what Danton Lynn said, what the defensive coaches said, what Lincoln Riley said, the fundamentals, basics, that is the right message. You can't you can't be 2011 Alabama right? Like you don't worry about trying to go for that standard, or 1995 Nebraska. That's not realistic. You can't make the quantum leap
2001
all at once.
Miami.
Just
How about 2008 USC? Okay, go ahead. Sorry. All right.
Yeah, you just got to be decent, competent, fundamentally on point first. Let's just get there. Let's just get to second base. All right. Don't worry about the home run, hitting the grand slam. Let's just make good, solid contact, drive the ball into right center field for a solid single, maybe a long double, or a double that gets into the gap. Just start at a certain place. And one thing about the season opener against LSU, it's not against Jaden Daniels, right? It's going to be against Garrett Nussmeier or another quarterback within the fold at LSU. So you're not going against a Heisman Trophy candidate. So like that tells me that USC doesn't have to have the most masterful scheme. And in a season opener, when you don't have preseason games in college football, like the things that often decide those late August, Labor Day weekend college football games, it's usually guys making a really big mistake because it's game one and they're not quite sure of themselves, and just one little lapse because you're not fully schooled on the scheme. You have a little moment of hesitation and doubt. That's all it can take to decide one of those week one games. So really, even for the LSU opener, I mean, I know that LSU will obviously throw some wrinkles at USC, just as USC and Lincoln Riley will try and throw wrinkles at LSU. But being fundamentally sound is going to be at the center of success in that huge Las Vegas lid lifter against LSU. So I just love the fact that the coaches didn't try to overshoot or overpromise. They started with the basics. I think that focus was exactly on point.
Yeah, well, one thing that we talked about as far as scheme is going to help out is that you do have a situation where you have John Humphreys at corner, and you're going to have Kamari Ramsey at safety, and both these guys know the system. So that's one more. That's two coaches you could have on the field as well that should help this thing move along a little bit faster as far as install as well. I'm thinking that they're probably going to see themselves on the field. I would assume. So there's competition obviously in spring, but they're definitely going to have a leg up knowing the system like the back of their hand. They already have a whole year in the system. So you have that value added to it. Hey, listen, guys, I dropped that question. So who's your favorite position coach? Basically, they picked up. Now, position. I know I was going to say Lynn, but your position coach from this new 2024 roster. And if you want to drop the reason why, I'll pop them up here too. But I'd love to hear from you guys. I mean, there's quality across the board for the first time, and you can include also if you want. Let's keep the defense. So on defense, who do you think is probably going to be the most had the most impact and your favorite pickup for the 2024 class, 24 season? So Matt, we also can talk about the other ones. Did Belk? Did you hear anything from Belk? Kind of soft-spoken guy. Did you pick up anything from him as far as the secondary is concerned?
Didn't get huge takeaways from Belk. It was more about Entz, a little bit of Lynn, and also Riley just talking about player developers and player development being the main focus. Not so much from Belk, but I just reiterate that Lincoln Riley convinced a bunch of guys who had significant positions at their various places of employment, a head coach, a defensive coordinator, Aaron Donald's coach with the Rams, and he convinced them all to come to USC. I mean, it's a real amazing thing that Lincoln Riley pulled off. And of course, Jeff Rodriguez mentioning, the $7 million, for the staff, just so Jen Cohen being willing to invest in that to help Lincoln Riley retool, that has to be mentioned and included.
Jeff brings up a good point. They're talking about Coach Henney and then the parallels between Coach O. They're two different dudes, but they're both D-line coaches who are known. Usually D-line coaches, you guys, even at the high school. You guys ever think back at high school, the defensive line coach, it's always a character at that position. It just seems like there's always he's usually the ass kicker. He's usually a character to some degree, right? And but with Coach Henne, I don't know too much about him right now, but a lot of the beat writers, a lot of the guys that I respect to listen to, they're basically saying that he's a person guy, like he's a people guy, just like Coach O, right? Coach O, I wish someone broke down a story about Coach O, but they would say basically Coach O would make you feel like you're the most important guy in the room, that kind of thing, right? And they're saying that Henderson during the it was very detail oriented, want to get to know people's names, really on that level, and that's why the big concern we were thinking about Coach Henderson, he's not really doesn't have a lot of experience in recruiting. What's gonna be like? He's kicking ass, you guys. I mean, he's literally, you're starting to see guys from all over the country with interest in play on USC's defensive line, and there's no question about it. It's because of Coach Henne, and that's what he brings to the table. Coach O is the same way. Coach O, the most famous story I know from Coach O is when at the very beginning he got here, he thought he was fired, right? So, usually you guys, when you have a new head coach taken over, he was a holdover from the Paul Hackett. And then when Pete Carroll came in, he didn't know if he was going to be retained. So what did he do? He just kept recruiting. He kept recruiting his ass off, and shows up at a game at Pete Carroll's at. And Harold's like, well, what are you doing here? He's like, well, I'm recruiting, coach, and it just tenacious recruiter, and ended up getting, keeping his job. Pete obviously saw what he had in Coach O, hired him, and just think of all those defensive lines that we had in those early Pete Carroll years. That was all Coach O. So, I mean, if Henderson can copy and repeat the recruiting that Coach O had in those Pete Carroll years, we're in for a hell of a ride.
And I think the salient point to make on the heels of what you said, and also Jeff Rodriguez, making the linkage to Coach O, Ed Orgeron, I think the bigger salient point is that every coaching staff, and by extension every locker room, needs an enforcer. Now, in some cases, the enforcer is the head coach. Like with the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick was the main enforcer. Now, Tom Brady was the other enforcer, but it did come from the top, and everyone, respected but also feared Bill Belichick enough that they didn't want to cross him. They wanted to make sure they did their job. They stayed on assignment. But Lincoln Riley did not have an enforcer these past few years. And of course, Coach O was Pete Carroll's enforcer. Marv Goo was John McKay and John Robinson's enforcer in the 1960s and 70s. The guy who just inspires not just passion, but also discipline, commitment, not slacking off. The guy who creates accountability in a locker room, on a practice field. Lincoln Riley did not have that other guy on his staff. So Henderson is very much in position to be that guy. But I also think Matt Entz. I think Matt Entz could along with Henderson, be that guy, because Entz has been a national champion head coach. So that's a seasoned guy in the room. And both Henderson and Entz, I think, are going to help D'Anton Lynn, in terms of the overall defensive development. D'Anton Lynn, because he's just 34 years old, because he hasn't been a coordinator for a very long period of time, Lincoln Riley wanted some mature, very wise assistants to collaborate with D'Anton Lynn. So that's not just, I'm just handing the keys to a 34-year-old defensive coordinator, kind of akin to I'm just going to hand the keys to Alex Grinch and let him do what he thinks is best. No, this time we're going to have a meeting of the minds. It's not just going to be D'Anton Lynn on an island. As good as D'Anton Lynn is, and as well as he performed with UCLA, no, we're going to have other really seasoned, tough, discipline-focused guys. And so I think Jeff is really on point in terms of highlighting that need for an enforcer. I think what's really exciting about this staff is that while Henderson is probably the best guy to fit that mold in the Coach O, and before that the Marv Goo mold, what's really exciting is you could have multiple enforcers on this staff, so that you're making sure that every position group on this defense, and for that matter, the whole locker room. So what the defensive coaches do in terms of setting a standard, man, if that bleeds over to the offense to any degree at all, like that, you're getting that much more accountability and buy-in from everyone. And like every player buying in, every added player who buys in, you're getting that much better as a team, and you're creating that much more distance and differentiation from what we had last year. And I keep emphasizing that you're not just replacing bad coaches, but you're adding so much good quality. So your addition by subtraction, your addition by retention, Taylor Mays, and then your addition by addition. So you have addition in 3 different forms, and that could just create an exponential effect. What I called at Trojans Wire, the multiplier effect. It's going to make Danton Lynn so much better. It's going to make this staff so much better. It's going to make this team so much better. That's part of why I'm so excited about this defensive coaching staff.
I'm with you. I could. That's exactly my thoughts as well. Just you have development, you've got professionalism, you've got strong recruiting. It looks like, and you got, again, you have accountability, right? And so that we'll go into that as well, because there's the whole dog that's been jumping all over USC Twitter. We'll go into that, what Henderson is doing. But you know, Kurt, I'm gonna give you a shout out just because you're here, man. And Kurt, we love you. Thank you for being here. Fight on, and hope you make this your regular hangout, Kurt. Thanks a lot, man. Okay, so I would love to have a great transition for this, but I really don't. Let's see if I get this right. I think we chose it was here. Help me out if I get it wrong. No. Okay, we'll do this one. So Lincoln Riley has been at it. I mean, by the way, if you're out there, Rusty, thank you so much for the picture. I appreciate the Riley on fire picture. But they just came out recently today. So they had the big Under Armour Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia, and Julian Lewis was there throwing the ball. You guys go look at it on 247. They got lots of video of him throwing the ball, just beautiful, running through drills and things like that. So again, if you guys aren't familiar, Julian Lewis is committed to USC. He was a 2026 quarterback that reclassified for 25 class. Still committed to USC. But man, it seems like all the national guys at 247 are just hand-wringing and hoping he's leaving. But again, if you go back to early article that I wrote, where I quoted his dad from an interview. I can't remember who the interview was with. Basically, dad says, as long as Lincoln Riley's there, or he asked about Georgia or Alabama with DeBoer there, you know, great quarterback coach there. You know, what do you think about some SEC school? He said, look, if Riley's there, then sure. But basically, other than that, no. He made it very clear that they want that development. I think Lewis has been out to USC a number of times. He is, though, however, going to be visiting Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn sometime this spring, according to 247. Then you got a 4-star offensive tackle in Juan Gaston. I think he's going to Oregon, South Carolina, and Georgia, I think, for official visits. But he's listed that he wants to get out and see USC, South Carolina, Texas, and Tennessee. So there's another big guy from – these are all in Georgia, by the way. So there's Juan Gaston. Then Justice Terry, I wrote about him a couple weeks ago. This dude is a big dude. You've seen him in some of the big man camps where he just flies off the – this guy is fast. He's got everything. He's got that quick twitch, strength, size, you name it. This guy has got NFL written all over him. He's going to visit Florida State on March 9th, but he's coming out to USC March 23rd. He also wants to visit Alabama and Florida on officials. And then I'm sure he's going to work through all those and figure out who he's going for his officials. But, you know, with officials, you guys, they're unlimited. So I'll bet you he's probably going to go to a lot of these schools on the official visits as well. Then you have another guy from Stockbridge, Georgia, Chase Taylor, 3-star linebacker. Wants to visit USC, UCLA, Georgia Tech, and Clemson. Although he's in Georgia and he's getting recruited by Georgia, you're seeing a theme here. They could only take so many great. The state of Georgia is kind of like it seems like California is tipping, you know, towards the Georgia and Florida. It used to be Texas, USC, and Florida. Now it really seems like it's Texas, Florida, and Georgia as far as the numbers of these 5-stars. But I will tell you this. I'm going to do an article on this, man. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm going to write it down. I looked at where all the NFL players come from, and I'll tell you what, they are not proportional. They are not proportional to these recruiting rankings. There's a lot of guys in California. California was a close third. They're not buried like they are on these 247 and on 3, where they have California a distant like 4th place when it comes to 5-star and top blue chip talent. So keep that in mind. And then the last one I want to talk about was Duke Johnson, 4-star safety. Again, he wants to visit Florida State, Tennessee, Alabama, UCF, but no dates are set. He also wants to go visit Texas A&M and USC. So all this stuff, there's a great article on 247. You guys just go look up, do a search for 247 Under Armour Atlanta, and you can check out their work. Great setup. Here's why. You're seeing these guys and you see a number of defensive linemen going nuts, and USC is getting just a ton of attention that we're not used to getting. You know, when we're talking about hearing from a Justice Terry, we're on his short list of visits he wants to go do. I'm telling you guys, it's a big part of it is because you have Eric Henderson, who came from the Rams to USC. We told you he's hitting the ground running for recruit. If you weren't watching the show earlier, go back and watch it. But he's got this whole dog ethic, right? And you see, if you're on USC Twitter, you see it. Dog stands for discipline, attitude, work ethic, and grit. And that's basically his attitude towards his defense and his defensive development. Is to work at the highest levels of football. This guy's electric. Again, if you haven't checked it out, go to the Athletic site. Watch the interviews with all of the defensive guys. His section was my favorite. I mean, literally, just the energy was exuding from this guy. So make sure you're checking it out. Matt, what's your thoughts on Dog? The dog. You got a dog in you, Matt? You got that dog in you?
I have that Trojan in me. I mean, you know, my dad did attend USC in the 1960s. I don't know if I've shared that on this show before, but he did. So, you know, just the main thing is, like, if you're a defensive line prospect, like, you look at everything Eric Henderson is doing, saying, talking about, how could you not want to play for this guy? Like, you know, you do want to run through a brick wall for him. And it's really hard to see him not breaking through. And, you know, one person mentioned the chat. I don't know who it was, but he's saying, you know, I think Eric Henderson's going to land a big defensive tackle transfer in the spring portal window. That's what we're all hoping for. That's what we're all, you know, hoping Eric Henderson can deliver. And of course, that if USC can, you know, get a couple splash hits in that spring portal window, that significantly raises the bar and will boost USC's hopes of having a big 2024 season. I think right now, just as the roster exists currently, I think USC is a little short. I really think that USC needs at least one, if not two, significant spring portal additions to feel that, you know, we can make the 12-team playoff in 2024. I don't think we're quite there yet right now, but that's what the spring portal window is for. A good reminder, last year in the spring portal window, Bear Alexander. 2 years ago in the spring portal window, Jordan Addison. So, like, USC got fundamental centerpiece players who significantly, vastly improved the team, the roster in the spring portal window the last 2 seasons. So hopefully USC is going to make it 3 in 3 years. And if there's a guy who's going to do it, the money is on Eric Henderson to land that big, nasty defensive lineman.
Well, just really quickly, B. Mason, we signed 0 5-star players, 0 top 10 defensive players in California. Again, look, the star ratings and the guys that do them are amazing and they're great, but it's not science. And I will tell you this, you know why they screwed up? Because Marcellus Williams is not one of the 5-stars and not one of the top 10 defensive players in California. That right there tells me, and I've watched this kid play for years now, and you guys will get to see him at USC going forward. He is the real deal. And the fact that he's not a top 10 player in California, he's not a 5-star, I'm telling you, it puts the star rankings this year in California into question in my book. And there are many others. And just because we didn't get, you know, these 5-stars from California, you got guys like, remember this name, dude. When you have a linebacker from Connecticut, this kid Newby is going to be, you watch. I think he's going to get some really early playing time on special teams, and he's going to sneak in during the season. I'm telling you, he's something really special. Yes, the stars matter, but on the macro level, if you start picking apart, we didn't have this number. that's when you get lost in the weeds. And I'm telling you, was this a great recruiting class? No. Does USC have to get better in high school recruiting? Yes. But was this, the players we got were quality players that are going to see the field. And I think you'd be happy. Don't get all mixed up with these 4 stars and 5 stars. You're going to be excited about who we did sign. All right. So then one last one, this came on. This is just right when I was making this together. This came out on Twitter. I caught. We have this young man, Kevin Wynn, Juju. He dropped his top 10 again. Another kid from Georgia, and he's from Greensboro, Georgia. He's a class of 2025, so this could be the next recruiting class. He's the number 13 defensive line. Look at all those names. So you have Florida State, Georgia, and the list of all you'd expect you'd see a guy from Georgia looking at, right? Well, look at the one that doesn't match in recent years. You got USC up there, and there's one big reason for that, and that big reason is this guy right here. So again, it just continues to show you imagine this. You get a good president at USC and Carol Folt, who then decides to hire Mike Bone. They actually get a professional athletic director, who then turns around and pulls off with Brian oh my God, I forgot Sosna's first name. How can I forget Sosna? Brandon. I was calling Brian Sosna. Brandon Sosna, and they pull off this coup by pulling in Lincoln Riley. And then seasons play out the way they do. It's not working. So what do? They go and rip off the young, hot defensive coordinator over at UCLA, force Chip Kelly out of head coaching with that move, and severely hurt a conference rival, our traditional, one of our traditional rivals, and then they have a guy like I don't know. Let's go get the defensive line coach over at the Rams to be our defensive line coach. These are big boy moves made by big boy programs. Now we're getting big boy attention from kids in the South. So continue to watch, you guys. We're going to start We're going to start getting a lot of interest from all these defensive linemen. And I'm telling you, there's enough smoke. Some of these guys are going to hit it and come in, guaranteed. We're getting a little bit long in the show, Matt. I saw this that came up. Guys, if you're not checking out Fight on Rusty, I think he had a pretty legitimate list when he had his over-unders for the season. Here are the win totals that are expected. This is from 247 Sports. I don't know what the source is, because someone with better eyes than me can check that out. But they report this graphic came from 247.
Okay, I can read the small print. FanDuel Sportsbook.
Thank you. And the numbers look legit. Like, for instance,
first things first. Give me the over for USC. Like that.
Right.
That should be a layup. That should be a layup at 7.5. It's shocking that the number's that low, actually.
I am surprised because, I mean, when you look at the schedule, yeah, there are some bangers in here. It's gonna be LSU. It's gonna be a hell of a game. Michigan, hell of a game. Penn State at home should be a pretty good game. Washington lost a lot. I go down the list, and then Notre Dame. So that's 3 right there where I think it's going to be, maybe USC might be a dog, or it's going to be in a dog fight with all those games. But then a number of the other ones I'm looking at, Matt. I can easily find 8 wins here, and many different ways.
Well, I think like six games are gimmies. Utah State, Minnesota, Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska, UCLA. Those 6 gimmies, like put them in the bank, and then USC would just need to go 2-4 in the other 6, tougher games to get to 8. Like, wow, like, come on, 7.5. And so, we're getting some comments. So, hey, if you fancy yourself as someone who likes putting your money where your mouth is, well, you can take the over and profit. So, like 7.5, that's not a serious line. I think I would set it at, I would set it right now at 8.5, and then we could revise up to 9.5 if USC gets some guys in the portal. But at 7.5, that is shockingly low, actually, because I think that price or that number rather would make sense if Alex Grinch was still on staff, but he's not. USC's upgraded so much on its staff that like that number should be 8.5. if not 9. So that's a real eye opener, Tim.
Yeah, I was completely shocked about how low they had. I agree with you. I'd say right now with the roster, knowing that we got some, two of our toughest games a year are in the 2 of the 3 first games we play out the gate. So I know that's going to be difficult. I know that LSU's replacing, their the coaching staff so that's going to be helpful. But man, they've been building that roster for a while. Even though you have. Well, I'll say this. I think that USC has more than a 50% chance. I'm going to go out and let them say it, of winning at least one of those first 3 games. And I think those might be, depending on what we see from Notre Dame, I think those games might be the toughest games on the schedule, is the LSU and Michigan game. But Michigan loses a lot. I mean, a lot off of including the coaching staff and the defensive line coach, the head coach, the strength coach. There's a lot to be lost, but they do have a hell of a defense still, as far as players are concerned, if they can hold on to them through the spring.
Yeah, I think, if you're talking about likely losses for USC, at Michigan has to be number 1 on the board. But I think the interesting thing for USC is that, and I know that Jeff Rodriguez has mentioned this in the chat, if we get the LSU win, if USC wins that LSU game, then the odds of making the playoff, getting 10-2, because if USC goes 10-2 against this schedule in a 12-team playoff, not 4, not 8, 12. If USC goes 10-2 against this schedule, that should definitely be enough to make the playoff. And so if you get that LSU win, I think USC's odds of getting to 10-2 are really good, because Michigan looks like a loss. But then I think Wisconsin, who, by the way, has a coach named Alex Grinch on its defensive staff. I kind of like the chess match for USC in that game. There's also a player on Wisconsin who's named Tackett Curtis. I kind of think that Lincoln Riley can expose Tackett Curtis and the rest of the Wisconsin defense at home. So I think that leans to a win. Now, Penn State, that might be the other real telltale game. It's in the Coliseum. The thing that I would be confident about is, James Franklin has not been able to develop quarterbacks since Trace McSorley. Sean Clifford, he won the Rose Bowl, but, Penn State was not especially strong on offense under Sean Clifford. Like, since Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley, under Joe Moorhead as the offensive coordinator, Franklin has failed to cultivate really strong offenses and really dynamic passing games ever since, unless Penn State somehow makes a great leap forward on offense, and I'm not seeing it. I think that USC's defense, in the middle of the season, so by, in mid-October, you'll get guys working with a fuller playbook. They'll have a fuller, more complete understanding of the scheme. I like USC's ability to shut down Penn State's offense and win that game. And then comes the road trip to Washington. Washington obviously had an enormous amount of success, but this is the exodus, right? No Penix, no Rome Odunze. All the guys who stayed around for 2023, they're now gone. And so the drop off at Washington could be substantial, and you add in a coaching change, Washington, of course, is going to be weaker than it was last season. The drop off could be a much bigger than a lot of people are currently willing to admit. So, that game, it's not going to be a cakewalk in Husky Stadium, but I think USC catches Washington. Like, if you're going to go to Seattle, this is the year to do it. The timing of that is not that bad. And then that final game against Notre Dame, kind of like USC's chances there too, because Riley Leonard, he's a tough dude. He's physical and he's a warrior, but he's not a brilliant passer. And if USC's defense is everything that we think that this unit is capable of, Notre Dame has struggled to throw the ball down the field. Notre Dame has struggled to stretch defenses and show real vertical dynamism in its offense. Are we really certain that Notre Dame is going to be able to upgrade its offense and specifically its passing game enough to, really put this USC defense on its heels on the back foot. Now, if this was an Alex Grinch defense, that's one thing. But this defense at the end of the season, let's say USC is 9-2 heading into that Notre Dame game, and which means that this game would be for a college football playoff spot. You really think USC is going to lose if the Trojans are in that spot? I don't. So yeah, I'm looking at, I think Michigan is the likely loss. LSU, I maintain I'm not gonna get off this dime before Labor Day weekend. LSU is the most important game of the season, and then after that, if there is another hinge point moment, it's that Penn State game in the middle of the season, followed closely by Washington.
Yeah, well, make a Chase look good. Chase be sorely good. It would be if you had Moorhead or Saquon Barkley running behind them, so that any quarterback is going to look good in that situation. They unfortunately, I don't think they have that. I don't think that they're going to, especially having at home now. If we were in Happy Valley during a whiteout and we're in Beaver Stadium, that's a different story. But having them at home plays right into what you're saying, Matt. And I think that, in the chat, they're talking about, they're not going to be as strong. But let's say they lost Manny Diaz as well. That's one thing. Remember, this is not the same defense they had last year. They got Tom Allen coming up from Indiana. So it's not going to be the same.
Which might be an upgrade. It might be an upgrade.
Might? Okay. All right. I know you're a big. I'm
a big Tom Allen guy. I would have loved him at USC, but I mean, hey, I'm happy with what USC has. But yeah, I was a big Tom Allen guy.
And really quickly, guys, if you haven't checked out our video, we on Friday, Matt and I got together. We did our call-in show. We were talking specifically about the defensive guys. So if you want to cruise over there, check that out. And then remember, you can always catch the call-in show. We have the Conquest call-in show every Friday at 6 p.m. And then if you don't get enough of Matt and myself, you can always check out the Trojan Wire. The links are in the description of this video. Also, listen, please, guys, I know we're over 5,000, but hey, let's push for 10,000 now. Come on, if you're out there, you have not subscribed, do us a favor. If you enjoy the show, we appreciate you being here. Go ahead and subscribe so you can catch all of our comments and our shows. I'm going to start trying to drop some more videos throughout the week as well, just short little ones, just to get revamp in the off season. But make sure you guys do have a subscription to us and hit the notification bell so you know that we do go live. Because if we get some really big news, if we get a big recruit, something happens, Matt and I will pop on live. And then, of course, we could not have a show without me reminding. And by the way, Matt, if you notice, I had the right amount of days up there right now. It has now been 4,892 days since Missy Convoy, Paul D, and the rest of the scumbags took Reggie's trophy away from him. They're looking really stupid. You have a Supreme Court ruling. You have everyone pretty much, unless you're like from a rival school or just someone as a hater, saying, why aren't you giving this man his trophy back? And just clarification again today, Reggie Bush did not take money from a booster. This guy had nothing to do with USC. He's a family friend of his stepfather. This had nothing to do with USC. He was a sophomore. It wasn't money for him to come to USC. And quite frankly, they never once actually proved that he took money from anybody. So let's be consistent, NCAA. So since you screwed up your investigation, as Judge Schaller talked about, and since you ridiculously threw penalties at USC and at Reggie Bush, get out in front of this one, get out in front of history, stop looking stupid, and give the man his trophy back. Matt, anything else we want to discuss today? It's been a fun week, I'll tell you that. But is there anything specifically that we want to go over, or anything specifically at Trojan's Wire that you want to talk about?
We're your home for USC football coverage, but also one thing worth saying, especially if you live in or near Los Angeles, March 22nd and 24th, Friday, Sunday, March 23rd and 25th, Saturday, Monday. Why are those dates significant? USC women's basketball is in position to host women's NCAA tournament games at the Game Center. Never happened before. That's now extremely likely after the big win over Oregon State. You want to make sure to pack the Galen Center. And if you want to be able to say, hey, I can go to an NCAA tournament game at the Galen Center, you want to file those dates away. You want to clear the deck on that weekend so you can get out and support USC women's basketball doing something really special, having a great shot to go to the Sweet 16 and maybe a little bit beyond that. So that's a non-football note, and we're definitely covering all the details of Juju Watkins and this very special USC women's basketball team at Trojans Wire.
Feel free to spam the chat right now. We're going to get that chat count up for me. It'd be appreciative and surely get this video out to more people. Slap Happy, thank you for spamming. Slap Happy, thank you for spamming the super chats tonight. Really appreciate you as always being here. Slap Happy, Miller will ball out. Watch, I believe he will too. If we saw just an inkling of what he's going to do, it was confirmed during Riley's, I think it was Riley's portion of the interviews the other day, that there will be a competition with, he and Maeva are going to throw at it in the spring. I would say to you that he clearly has the advantage. He's got proof of concept in Riley's system. He's got 2 years of experience now, and now a third off season of being able to throw in his system. I think he's going to be the lead horse, and I am more than happy with seeing Miller out there rocking that 7 and throwing the ball around all over the Coliseum. It's going to be great to see. So I'm with you, Slap. Thank you so much for doing that. Again, I talked about Conquest call-in show already. Art, I saw him hit some questions really quick. Matt, is that cool? You got a minute?
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is a pretty pertinent one. And I would say, yeah, if we don't get a big splash on the defensive line in the transfer portal, that will be a disappointment. Like USC needs a big splash. Now, if it's not on the defensive line, it better be on the offensive line. The USC needs a really big equation changing, or at least equation improving lineman in the spring transfer portal window. I mean, other position groups are nice, but USC really needs a high impact lineman. I would start on defense, but I'll accept offense in the spring window.
I'll take tackles of either variety. You want to give me a defensive tackle, you want to give me an offensive tackle, I'll take them, because we need depth. You just need depth, guys. Even though you see a guy out there, right, and he's wearing his offensive lineman jersey, or he's wearing a defensive lineman jersey, that doesn't mean that dude's even remotely 100%. And that's come to bite USC, I think, a lot the last couple of seasons, having that serious quality depth that you can rely on, especially in the defensive interior and on the tackles on offensive line.
It's worth noting, just on the heels of this question from Art House LLC, and it's a really good question, Art House. Thank you for that. But remember, Gino Quinones getting injured had a really negative domino effect on the offensive line last year. Now, one guy shouldn't have that much of a domino effect if your program's in really, really good shape, but it did. It did have a negative domino effect. So building depth, the whole point of building depth is so that one guy's absence doesn't create that really nasty downward spiral domino effect. Let's remember, Justin Dedich missed a few games in 2022. I believe that other members of the offensive line were also missed games here and there, and you did see some reshuffling of positions. Bobby Haskins, Mason Murphy played a little bit on the starting offensive line in 2022. So depth was tested, but what Bobby Haskins, Brett Nealon, and Andrew Voorhees were able to do, was enough to keep that group together. But without those guys in 2023, Gino Quinones, just one domino, in the larger set of pieces, had a significant negative effect on that line. So, yeah, Tim's emphasis on offensive tackles, if USC gets an elite offensive tackle, that really relieves a lot of fears and worries going into the Big Ten in 2024.
Fight on with another great support of the show, both financially and with his presence. Thank you so much, Fight On, for being here. Thanks for another excellent show. Thank you guys again. The chat, which invigorates everybody, just seeing you guys all out there kind of brings us up, just kind of get that crowd noise we get that number. We have 136 people in here right now. It just gets the adrenaline pumping, gets us excited. Appreciate every single one of you guys being here, but especially Fight On. Thank you so much for reaching your pocket and helping out the cause. Really, absolutely appreciate that. But again, appreciate everybody out there. If you could, for me, do me a favor, hit that like button. You know, it costs nothing. It helps grow the show, get people out there. If you have friends, bring them next week. Chat with them. You guys, all these things help the show. You know, sending us super chats is just one way to help us. There are a million other. You guys, again, this community, the USC community, I pop around to all different shows. You know, I read the comment sections, USCJ and over at the Trojan Blade. I mean, you guys, I see all the same names, and I love it. We have a great growing community here, and hope to see all of you guys again on Friday, 6 o'clock for the call-in show. Guys, if you haven't called in yet, what are you waiting for? You know, it's the perfect time, off season. No one's watching us. It's off season. Pretend like no one's there. Call in, talk to Matt. He'll tell you a bunch of USC stuff. Sound off if you want to talk about it. Earlier in the show, somebody was talking about it was a crack because you can't talk about coaching, Matt, unless you talk about the special teams coordinator. You guys, USC does not have, no, they still do not have a special teams coordinator, but they do have Ryan Doherty, and this guy's kind of a kicking specialist. I'm blanking out on the name, but they got a new kicker, Matt, who's a pretty damn good kicker. I'm so sorry, guys. I had a slide and apparently didn't make it into my panel here, but absolute awesome kicker. You know, Doherty, his specialty is in kicking, and he's worked in kicking specifically for 6 years of his career. So I'm going to be interested to see just what's going on with our kicking situation, because the last couple of months, it's been a situation where we have not been able to rely on our kickoffs or our field goal kicking. And I don't want to call guys out by name. You know, a lot of people are all over Dennis. There's no reason for that. You know, there's just no reason for it in my book. But I will say that it needs to get better, because I think when you play in the Big Ten, you're going to have less possessions. That means each possession counts a little bit more. And that means if you're going to stall somewhere around the 40-yard line and it's 4th and 6 or 4th and 12, if you got a guy that can nail that 50-yard field goal, you could trot him out there and kick it. That might be the difference between some of these games. We're playing LSU. We're talking about playing Michigan in the big house. Those kicks, those big-time kicks in front of over 100,000 fans are going to be very important. And so I hope that we can get that together.
I just want to say before closing, 135 of you want to talk college football on President's Day. Like that is dedication. That's being a diehard, you know, in the middle of February. So you guys rock. Thank you for supporting the USC channel at the Voice of College Football.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you guys, you can always catch us here, as you just did, every single Monday. Join us here for Matt and I were here, but we'll have Mark next week coming back. And then on Friday, we have the Conquest call-in show. If you haven't checked this one out from last Friday, go check that out. Leave a like, you guys. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Check out our work on Trojan's Wire. Again, I'll have something on basketball, as well as I want to talk about the linebackers that we're recruiting. That'll be out early this week. Make sure you're checking us out. For Matt, I'm Tim. Appreciate all of you guys being here. We'll see you guys on Friday. Fight on, guys.